Good afternoon, and welcome to the Warren County Library from home. Today, we're going to make a vase made from a paperback book. So I'm glad you stopped in with me today. My name is Mary Ellen. I work at the Warren County Library headquarters, and every Thursday at 2 o'clock, I'll be making a craft with you while we are closed. Our doors are closed, but our virtual doors are open. So here we are. Now last week we made paper roses, and I thought what better time to make a vase to put them in. So if you come into the headquarters branch of our library, you've seen lots of paper books that I've made into other things. The first one I made was back at Thanksgiving time when I made a turkey from a book. I hope we are open by Thanksgiving, but if not, I'll be showing you how to make a turkey out of a book at some point. So a lot of people were interested in classes and how to do these things, and so now we have our chance to do it virtually. I'm really happy to be able to work from home and spend some time with you people here. I don't know if we have any commenters in the group. I will hit the comment box and see if that begins. I have not seen anything yet. No, I'm not seeing anything, so hope that that will happen. All right, so if you want to make an altered book into a vase, the first thing you need is a paperback book. So there are many sizes and shapes of books that you might use. Hello, I see you there. I think that's Ruth. I'll say hi, Ruth. If you have a small paperback that's thick, it'll make a really nice full vase. So that's an option for you. Another option would be some books are a taller book, but much thinner. That's also going to work to make a vase. You'll be able to make a different size. It won't be quite as full, but I've come up with an option for that too, if you have a thinner book. Yes, it is, Ruth. Good to see you there. So, let's see. If you have, you decide which kind of book you want to try cutting, and I'll walk you through the steps. If you have a small, fat book, like that book, or the larger book, the first thing I suggest that you do is copy the shape of your book. Just draw around it on a piece of paper, and then you'll know the palette size you have to draw the shape of the vase that you can make inside that shape. So on this particular book, this is a dictionary that is over 800 pages. My idea was to make a vase that was very, very full, but very short and fat. So I was thinking that a circular vase would work for that shape. So what I did was I got a bowl, and I put the bowl on top of a piece of paper and cut it out. Now, I would totally suggest to you that you do it on a folded piece of paper. So when you open it up, you would see the entire size of your finished product. If not, if you're only looking at half, you may not realize how large this is going to be. The very first one that I made was a taller book that was not quite so thick. And what I did was I drew the shape of the half a vase that I thought would fit nicely, and I just began cutting right away with the half a vase. What I found was it was much bigger when it was done than I really wanted it to be. So do that drawing, then cut it out on a folded piece of paper, open it up, and then you'll see the finished size, and it'll come out more like you were intending on. You can see I cut this from a Kleenex box. We're using everything, recycling, right? Yesterday was Earth Day. We're recycling the books. We're even recycling our cardboard. So on the book that was this size, I would do exactly the same thing. Take it to a piece of paper, draw around it, and then look at it and decide what size or shape do you want to make from that book. So here's a simple shape, a nice little curve, and when I did that curve and I cut it out, I liked the size of it, made the template, and then I was ready to go. Okay, so that's what you would do if you wanted to begin. Here's an example of other options for shapes of vases. It's really up to you. They can have a sharp edge, they can have rounded edges like this. If you pencil it on the paper, it may be very hard to draw a simple line, but cutting that line out will be much easier than drawing it, and then you'll have a very good idea what your finished piece would look like. So, something that I found with the thinner book, and this was something that I came up with on my own, is that if it's not very full, you could actually then paste your template on the back, and you've actually made half a vase. I haven't seen anybody do that online, but I really wanted my vase to look more full. And this way, it can fit right up against a wall, and nobody even knows that the other side of it is even there. Put this back down. All right. So, move these pieces away. You see, that was the bowl that I used to put across the paper, and I drew my line right around the bowl. The other thing I found when I drew that bowl was when it was completely round, there was no base left. So do you see that I cut a straight line off the bottom here? If I hadn't, my vase would just roll away. So remember that you want to leave some type of a base behind so that when your vase is done, it'll have the support to stand up. All right, now I'm going to switch my camera to this handy dandy system that my husband made for me. And we're going to slide this down and switch my camera. All right, so here are the tools that I use to make a paper vase. I have 4 different knives here to show you a variety of knives that are available, and they're really not hard to find. You can find one. I think I might have even found this in the dollar store or certainly in Walmart. So they're readily available to you, and they are more than X-Actos. This is an Olfa blade. This one is very, very comfortable in my hand. This is something from my husband's toolbox, and I find that it fits my hand very well for cutting. And if you're going to be cutting through 800 pages, you want to feel comfortable. I should note that we probably will not get a book done during this time. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then you can spend some time afterwards finishing up. So, here we go. So, also a knife that has the break-off blades are the ones that I would like the best too, because as your blade becomes dull, it's not cutting as well. You can actually snap off the end, and you've got a sharper one right next to it. Also, you can cut very deep into something if you can extend your blade out further. Even though I don't suggest pushing it out that far, you could do that. Different blades will give you different effects. And a long, thin X-Acto blade is very nice and sharp, but what you have to be careful about is you want to keep this at a straight angle and not turn this to an angle like this, because your book might start to become distorted by that, okay? So I'm going to put the book in here. Now, when you begin cutting, I've got my book and I've got my template. Many directions that I see online will tell me to cut the cover off the book first. I actually leave my cover on last because I think that it protects the book if I'm not done right away. I can put it away, I can take it out again, and I've not wrinkled the pages or I have not messed them up in any way. I'm going to check again to see if there are any comments. Not seeing any comments. Let's see. Let's go back. Oh, I don't know. All right. So I don't see any questions there for me. So I've got the template, and what I found when I opened up this book was that the first couple of pages were really stuck to the spine. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to ignore those, and I'm going to put them to the side, and I'll go forward, because if they're not laying flat, they could become a problem to me later. And something I should also mention to you before I begin cutting was you might want to look at your book and see if it has ever been read before. A very well-read book will have a spine broken, and this broken spine is just what you're looking for in this type of project, because when you are done, you are going to want to bend this around, and that is going to make the opening in your vase. If it doesn't bend well, because it's never been read before, you might want to go through and just with your finger go through pages, and maybe, you know, a little chunk of pages at a time, and press this down, press this down, press this down. It looks to me like this book was probably read about this far, and then they didn't finish it. So I would probably come back to the rest of this and start pressing down these pages in order to break that spine a little bit, so I'll be able to make a nice circle with it at the end. All right? So I'll put that to the side. Now, back to the one we were going to begin. This is my example of how to cut it. You can see that I've cut quite a few pages. I think I'm up to page 593. I did that in one day, and then I really got tired of cutting. So I figured, why don't I save it and show it to you as an example. What I found after doing a couple of these is that I don't want to butt my template right up to the edge of the seam. I want to keep my template about 1/4 inch away from it. Now, why would I want to do that? I want to do that because as you get deeper into the book, it could be much harder to get that template fully into the seam. All right, so I start it and I hold it very tightly, 1/4 inch away, and I start cutting. And I found that I like to cut just a little chunk at a time. So I may want to cut something like 20 or 30 pages at a time, check it, and then go to the next, and go to the next, and go to the next. All right, so I'm going to place my, so I stopped, I did this on another day, and I went away, and I came back, so now I can place it back in line, and I know there was a 1/4 inch in there, if I can see all the way in, but it's kind of nice because I don't have to hold it in so tight now, because we're much further into the book, because I've left myself enough space to do that. So I'm going to take my knife, and I'm going to right along the edge of my template. Now, I don't want to cut my template, but I can follow the curve of the template right around, and there, that page just came right out, and usually quite a few will come out. If there's a little place that hasn't been cut, you can feel it right away with your hand. Go back and get it and pull it out. So you can see I got several out in that cutting. It looks like I must have missed a little spot right up here. And I think that with time, you kind of get into a rhythm. See a couple little pieces here, so let's come back and give that a little slice. Okay, let's come up here. So I'll cut I'll cut a few out the way I would do it, just to give you that impression of how simple it is. Now you see how they're coming out. I was pushing a little bit harder. Now you can see that my vase is not as tall as the book. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm cutting from here down just to release the top of the book. So when I begin the cut here, the page will come out easily. So let me get a couple more of them out, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Get rid of that one. Now, generally, what I've been doing is saving the pages that I cut out for another project. Because if I want to make paper beads, or I want to make a Christmas ornament or something like that, I can use these leftover pieces. So every time I've done this, I just throw them in a box and have them ready for whatever the next project might be. If this were an actual dictionary and not a medical dictionary, I would never cut it up, because a regular dictionary words are fabulous to use in jewelry. That's right, Jennifer. There's no waste with me. This is all about recycling. Now, do you see I've taken just a regular paintbrush to brush some of these little bits away, because it can become very messy, but it also can interrupt the cutting if you don't do that. So I'm going to take that away. That very last page, I'm going to stop. Now, after I cut a chunk like that, and say that was about 20 pages, I'm not sure that it really was. I don't know that I went that far. Look back at it and see if you see anything that needs additional trimming. What I see right here is a little piece that I'd say almost looks like a little bit of a frizzy hair piece or something like that. And what I would do is, there's one at the end here. See these little frizzies? I will trim them right off, because if I don't, they will surely stick out and be noticeable when all of the other pages are matching. So I see a little bit, okay. So do you see how that section is done? And you would just continue this section after section after section. When it's done, I go back and flip through my pages to see if there are any of those little loose things hanging out, those little frizzies that I would say, and just trim them off like this. Of course, I'm very particular, and I want this to look perfect when it's done. I think it is a very artistic and very modern looking sculpture when it's done. What's interesting to me in this one is that every single page has a white seam in it from where the lists of the words are, and that white seam is going to show on the top all the way around, giving it its own design. So if I had cut this entirely out, thank you, Beth. If you had cut this entirely out to the very end, let's pretend we did that, I would then cut this top all the way through to make sure that it was completely separated from the book, and I would rip off the cover. When you do that, what you're left with is the front page all the way to the back page, and you've got this big section. Now on this 800-page book, I'm going to have a nice big opening where I can put my flowers in. So what I've done on some of them is I've put a straw in there when I glue it. If you can see, I'm sure how my camera's working. If you glue it with a straw in there, and of course I would cut that off just slightly less long than the book, it will hold the place for me to place my flower stems in. Also, something I learned when I made the very first one was there was almost no room at all to put a flower in. So I came up with this idea of straws. So you can buy these super thick straws. These are smoothie straws that I got at ShopRite, and you can get them readily, or any kind of straw will work depending upon the size that you have. Sometimes the fast food restaurant will have a much thicker straw if they sell milkshakes, and you might want to actually recycle a straw that you got. Say you got a milkshake at Five Guys, you might want to use that straw and glue that in as you're closing it. So let me bring the camera back up. I can do. Very interesting situation here. My husband made me something to move the camera around, because it is actually an iPad that I'm using. And I just want to show you a couple of other things. So another vase that you could possibly make, I came upon in a book that I have checked out from the library right now. The book that I have checked out is called Kirigami. I like to check out all the new hobby and craft books as they come into our branch and I see them. I check them out. And this one had a really cool thing in it. It had a folded vase that you slice the folds and it makes a 3D effect where you can put a flower in there. So look for a future program where I'll probably do some kirigami as I am going through this book and some of the other books that I've checked out from the library, and in getting a chance during this time home that we can plan some future programs. Now, if you liked this program, I'm very glad you did. I'm glad you came. If you'd like to come next Thursday, know that I'm going to do watercolor for relaxation. I'm not a great watercolorist, I must admit. This is going to be a no judgment zone kind of a program where we're going to try some different effects and some different techniques to improve your watercolors. I have found that even 10 minutes a day with the watercolor pad, a paintbrush, and a cup of water, and it can really relax you, bring you calm down into yourself, and give you a nice state of relaxation before you go to bed. I know that a lot of people are stressed right now. I know I certainly am stressed. We are in a situation that we've never been in before. So if you'd like to try watercolor for relaxation, tune in next Thursday at 2 o'clock. And the next week, I'll be doing the folded heart, the book Folded into a Heart, which so many people have asked for this class. I ran it twice and still had more people who wanted to. So if you haven't had a chance to make the Folded Heart book, check your calendar. All the programs are listed on our calendar at warrenlib.org. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to register. You just need to show up here. And even if you're not here on time, it doesn't matter because the video will stay up for a while. So thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad you came. It's great for me to get a chance to do this and to speak with you. And I think that, you know, it's a way we take care of ourselves by sharing what we know. And, you know, the best thing we can do right now is take care of ourselves and our families and be safe and be careful to be safe. So we'll see you next Thursday. Thanks so much for coming. See a couple of messages there. And thank you so much for those who come and those who come later. I love you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.